This is The Early Effect, the podcast where you get to be a part of a conversation with your friends without having to contribute. Today we are going to gush about this golden age of board games that we live in right now. We really hope you come away with some new games to try. And here we go. Recording commencing. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Don.
We're going to talk about games today.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
This is your jam.
This
is like a you episode.
I was holding out for it, but yes, this is all me, all mine, all the time.
That's right. All right, folks, we are here talking about the golden age of board games that we live in. If you don't know what we're talking about, you're going to find out in a moment. Now, when did this start, Jeremy? It had to be, the golden age started about 10 years ago?
Yeah, I would say about 10 years ago. Yeah, right after 2010.
Yeah.
It seemed to be there was a really huge movement in poker from about 2003 up until about 2010. But then there was this shift. There was this paradigm shift where being at home and playing board games and being a nerd was wicked cool. And all of the nerds that we knew became celebrities.
Yeah. And I have to say that I hated board games up until this point because, I mean, I spelled them BORED games. Board games. Just couldn't, I think one of the big ones at the time that it was sort kind of coming around was the Game of Thrones board game, which my friends play. As you know, it takes them as long as it takes to play fucking D&D campaign. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It can take up to 6-8 hours for one game for these people.
And it's not just sitting around playing a game. There's negotiating. They're trying to make deals and bargains and play. It's a lot of politics.
It is. And so exhausting. It's very, very appropriate you have to kind of like that shit. And I don't.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm also not a strategy game player. I suck at Axis Allies and Risk and not me. It's not a thing that I like. So up until then, count me out.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
It's interesting that you find them that way. So rather than jumping into the conversation, what happened is there was an influx. Like I said, there was the online streaming became possible, became real. And so with the creation and growth of YouTube, those who clung to YouTube and those who started watching it were already introverted level nerds who were doing their own thing. And so when people recognized that they could start doing their own platforms, things started growing from there. And one of the big ones that I point to, which were there at the crux of it, they weren't the creation of it, but they were right at the beginning. Geek and Sundry was a television show, a television station that happened on YouTube. And they partnered with Will Wheaton to create Tabletop. Right. And it was just that. And Will Wheaton got to proclaim himself to the world as this great big game nerd who has been playing board games most of his entire life, plays with friends, has a huge collection of role-playing games and tabletop games, and wants to share them with you. Yes. And so he started this show called Tabletop on Geek and Sundry to introduce people to games. And it caught on like wildfire.
Absolutely. And I've seen a ton of those since. And Will is, his work has been fantastic in helping to propagate, I think, the popularity of this. And turns out he's a Gamers fan. So he likes our movies.
That worked out nicely.
I'm happy with that. But no, I mean, and you're not wrong. And it did. And I think you're like, just from there, like, okay, so being Dead Gentleman and Zombie Orpheus, and we did the Gamers and the Gamers Darkness Rising and the Gamers Hands of Fate, and we've been going to Gen Con as our main jam for years.
Yeah.
And through that, we get to not only see the games first and talk with the game designers and stuff, we actually become friends with the people who actually create all this stuff,
Yeah.
which was unreal and really a privilege to be able to kind of, I don't know, shoot the shit with these folks who create just amazing things.
Yeah.
And to see the real creativity that that at this point now, like, they're just, it's exploding, and it's been going on now, and it's evidence, as you can see in our backdrops. But for those playing at home, you can go to any game shop anymore, and usually you'll find at least one wall, floor to ceiling, of games they're selling, and there's a
Yeah.
ton of great ones.
There's an
Um,
entire line of furniture that is designed around board games. There
that's
is
right.
tables, there are shelves, there is chairs designed
Hmm.
around playing board games now. And they're no longer this weird fringe area. Like there are multiple companies that compete for business
Yeah,
for this kind of furniture that's out there because it's so
yeah,
popular.
absolutely. So there's a lot of great games out there. We're not going to cover all the ones. I
We
think we should
can't.
hit.
There's there's
Yeah,
thousands
it's
and
impossible.
thousands of games.
But let's hit some of the great ones. I wanna throw out one that is probably not quite as well known. I'm going to include the new card games as well, because they're
Great idea.
basically kind of board games. If we're going to talk about deck building games or quick card games, I think that counts as part of this board game discussion.
Yeah,
I'm not
because
talking about like poker substitutes or anything like this. These are
right.
games.
Right. And like real quick, Don, the way how would you define the experience of playing a board game now that it's no longer BORED?
Yeah,
What would you say is when someone says we're going to have a game night? What do you think they're referring to?
I think they are. So at many points in my adult life, we those words meant role playing game.
Hmm.
We're gonna have a game night. Great. Okay, I'll make a character. What time do I show up? What system are we playing? That's how that conversation went for years for me.
Yeah.
Then it switched. We're gonna have a game night. Oh, thank God. I'll show up. Do you want me to bring anything? Um, and now it's I'm going to, so what I get out of this is it's almost like an entire role playing game session, but distilled down into its best parts without the planning and without the hours of character creation. It is still, you can have cooperative team type things. You can
Yeah.
have experiences where you sit down and try and noodle each other out of things. And but it's not like chess or I mean, it can be, but it's
Sure.
a lot of these games. So my favorite games are cooperative.
Okay.
And so cooperative games are ones that you are not competing against each other specifically. You are, joining together to defeat the game, whatever the game's objective is, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Trying to get through it. And I love those games. And those feel more like the RPG sessions to me, but in a more controlled, distilled manner. And I think in a lot of ways, some ways, better quality time spent.
Yeah.
Because how many if you've been out there tabletop role playing games, there is a lot of time that is wasted on
Yeah.
somebody's tantrum or tangent or trying to look something up, or there's it can get real tedious. And when you get into your 40s and 50s and later on, middle age, it's a different time in your life where you just
No.
don't have a lot of patience
Don't
and room for
tolerate
that
that. Yeah.
anymore.
Ain't nobody got time. That's
So
totally true.
one of the things that also is interesting to me about game night, or hey, I'm going to come over and let's play a game, is I think it's one of the things that I love about your passion about this is we have different, not just genre of like what is the setting and that's, I mean, that's anything goes there,
Sure.
but we have style, not just styles of play because that's obvious, but board games are built around time played.
Yeah.
Like they're built around how long does this typically take to play, and those categorize certain specific types of board games.
Yeah.
And so there's one subgenre, as you know, called, it's kind of casual gaming.
Casual gaming. Yep.
Not a lot of brain power really needed to dive into that.
Usually less than an hour for those,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Usually less than an hour. Usually, really simple to learn.
Yep.
And I mean, and then there's the really like the mini ones where it's 10, 20 minutes a game,
Yeah.
and so I want to release you and talking about some of your favorite things about that. But to me, the idea that I can pick what I'm going to play and how long of time that is going to take up for me. I've got Dead of Winter, and we've played a 6.5 hour game of Dead of Winter.
Yep.
We've also played an hour game of Dead of Winter. It's one of those games that can fluctuate, and you can choose what style you want to play with that. Marvel Legendary, which I'll get to later, which is my favorite game, that can be pretty damn quick, or it also can take hours.
Just doing it right.
Just how you want to do it. And then we'll get into the Legendary, or not? Yeah, no, Legacy. We'll get into
Legacy games. Yeah.
But let's talk about the casual games, and like I know your big jam right now, and has been for a while, is those quick or really also portable games.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right on with that. One of my greatest dreams that I have one of these days is to be able to set up and play a role-playing game. And I really didn't mean RPG, without having to do all of the prep. Still being able to create characters and have fun, but not have to literally go through the multi-hours of process, because that's a burnout for a lot of people just to get into it. And just the idea of sitting down and playing a game is part of what makes it really fun for me. There doesn't have to be planning. You can just come over, bring your bag of snacks, and we're ready to go. And we can do it. Even getting through the instructions is different. And you're not wrong. There are so many games out there that start at 3 hours long or 3.5 hours long, and they work their way up, and they're super heavy. They've got lots of mechanics and lots of rules, and they can be a blast. I'm really enjoying the game Nemesis right now, which is basically what the Aliens board game always wanted to be. And it's fantastic. You've got these characters. You have to be the ship. You have to survive on it. You have to fight the monsters as well as survive each other and going through it. It's incredible. And it's really, really great about what it does. You almost always lose, and it takes you about 3.5 hours to get through losing the game.
So let's talk about, I want to pause you there for one thing, because that is a thing now where losing is fun. They've actually made it so that games can be fun to lose and
That's
to
true.
want to play it again and be okay with losing again. So continue. I just wanted to point that out, that's kind of a big deal.
It's a big deal. And I think we should talk about that when we get to legacy games, because that's a really great example of how losing really can work out for you, or you don't mind it as much, certainly by any means. When you talked about the mini games, another term for those is a filler game. It's the game in between games. That's
funny.
the idea. It fills the space in between the two other games that you play. And that tends to be a collection of mine.
One thing that I love about that entire concept is that it's the assumption that you always want to be playing a game.
Yes.
there is not just like it's just not just filler games, but there are games that are specifically designed that you could whip out while standing in line.
Yes, specifically. Yeah, and that's absolutely part of the idea. I don't like to use the word obsessed, but this is one of those things that you can point to me and go, you do this a lot. And then one of the things I do is just like to play games. And so in and this has happened since I was a very small child, ever since I first found out about these cassette games. It looks like a cassette tape, but you whip out a board, if it unfolds, folds out, and then the cassette dials are actually dice. You spin
What?
them with a little flicker. Yeah, I'll show it to you sometime. But they were like my first like travel games. Like board games can literally go anywhere, and this was the first time I experienced that because these would fit in my pocket.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I can always play a game because I had this terrible fear of boredom, like unnecessary fear of like
Huh.
I'm going to be bored somewhere. And that was something that I kind of had anxiety about as an elementary school kid.
Hmm.
So my pockets were filled, like I would constantly cram my pockets full of games or toys to prevent me from being bored at any time.
Hmm.
And that, whether I'd like to admit it or not, that has continued on into my adulthood because now I carry a bag of games with me everywhere. And they are often a bunch of filler games because I know out of experience that a filler game is something that's easy to teach, it's easy to get someone to commit to, and fun to play. So if I can find those three things, I can usually find a player almost anywhere who is okay to give up 20 minutes of their time. How I
Mhm.
see it, give up 20 minutes of their time, right? But sitting down to play a game, they don't feel like it's that long commitment. And
And
then I
that
found these tiny epic games that I thought
oh,
were going to be filler games that turns out to be
oh
exceptionally
man.
epic and long as hell.
So they live up to their name. They are tiny and they are epic.
Yeah.
And you might think as you're sort of looking at games with similar titles or games by the same company that they would have basically the same mechanic. These don't. These
Not at
are
all.
entirely different games. They are what? The size um of a
There's
like
cigar
a
box.
6 by yeah, cigar box or
Yeah,
even
they're
smaller.
they're a
Like a
5 by 8 by 2 inch box.
yeah, like a 5 okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. So I was thinking of like those larger note cards, you know,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, a
like a
little bit.
stack of the yeah, yeah. So, but the point is like you open that up and then playing the game fills an entire table
Yes,
and can be very intricate in learning how to play. There's a lot of things to learn.
a lot
So,
of things.
contained in a tiny little package, but you can have a pretty epic game. Literally, I mean, I do love that about that. It is
They,
unfortunate because they do sort of have that. Um, they give that impression that this is like a quick to learn,
right.
easy to set up kind of thing, and it's really not.
They even used that phrase a couple of times, like you learn it in 5 minutes and then play it in 2 hours. And you're right, like they're very much what I consider to be a gateway game, where
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm a casual gamer. This is a casual looking game. Look how bright the colors are. It says you can learn it in 5 minutes. This is perfect. Then you go through it and go, oh wow, there's actually like 9 mechanics in here. And I got to pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
Like the Tiny Epic Zombies is a great example. You're
Oh
fighting
yeah.
zombies, sure, but you also have to complete the objective of the game. Well,
Yeah.
which one? Oh, all of them. There are
Yeah.
3 objectives. You have to do all of those and survive. What if one of us dies? Oh, you lose.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, what if we don't do one of the objectives? Well, you lose. It's like, wait a minute. I suddenly went from this like I got to go kill zombies to now I have to survive and get to a helicopter and rescue the child. What
Yeah.
the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. And either that's amazing or it sucks. I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends on what you want out of a game. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that there's so much gamut. So I guess the takeaway that I want listeners to get is if there's anything you could possibly think of that you would like, there's probably a game out there for you.
There's a board
about
game out
that.
there for that, and it does not have to be long and tedious in the process. You can find
And
all sorts of things.
and you'll be surprised at the types of games that you end up absolutely loving. So remember when I said that I hated Axis and Allies and Risk and
Yeah,
Game of
strategy
Thrones,
games.
like strategy games and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm not a fan myself because again, I don't really. I just mentioned that I like Nemesis, right? That's a 3 hour game. I really am a fan of casual games. I really like the
Mhm.
ones that are not necessarily just party games. Like they have some really good conversation around them, but I like the ones that are actual like conversation level. Let's sit down and play this game for about an hour to an hour and a half because I don't
Yeah,
want to lose attention for people.
yeah. These strategy games that I haven't really liked in the past. Well, there became a type of strategy game that is super strategic that I absolutely love, and that ends up being the Pandemic and the Legacy games.
Yeah, which you got right over your shoulder, by the way. If
I
you look over your
do,
right shoulder,
I do, and guess what? Pandemic Legacy Season 3 is Season 0, and it arrives tomorrow.
what? Yeah.
Okay,
Let's
so Jeremy, what the hell is Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and so on?
Okay, so without being fully spoilery about it, Pandemic is an original board game where there is a actual series of pandemics that are trying to conquer the globe, and you play as different characters trying to find cures and stop the pandemic from spreading. It has got way more ways to lose than it has to win, and it's an exceptionally difficult game. A few years ago, I don't know, 7 years ago, no, I think it was 6 years ago, I think it's 2015. Pandemic came out with a game called Legacy, and the Pandemic Legacy game it's the same game. It's the game of Pandemic, but it's supposed to be played a certain finite number of times. You can play it up to 2 times every month. So there could be up to 24 different times you play the same game. But because it's a legacy game, every time you end one of your rounds of play, something permanently changes in the game. You
Yeah.
either alter the map or you change and add different cards or add challenges or perhaps benefits into the game. But from that point on, the game plays the new way.
So let
And
me
so the game
drop
you
some.
start with and the game you end with can be two very different
Oh
places.
yeah, and no two games are going to be the same. Like
Correct.
if your friends are playing this same exact packaging and everything, they're going to come out. They're going to end their sessions differently than you will end yours,
Yeah.
and their board will look different than your board. And what I wanted to say is that you said that you can play up to 2 times a month. Well, that's not literally true. What
Right.
you really mean is you have 24 times you could possibly play this game. You have 24 essentially potential rounds or potential games of this
Yeah.
of this season or whatever you want to call it. And each time you are putting stickers on the board. You are changing the layout. You are applying different things and different new mechanics. You are tearing up actual cards. You're
That is-
tearing them up and destroying them, and they're out of the game now.
Do you remember how hard it was for us?
Oh,
The very first time we played and it said destroy this card, and we're like, what does that mean? And the rules said tear it in half. We're like, what? No, it's a card of the game. Like we would not get into it at
it
all.
was so hard.
And then like 6 months in, we were we were just shredding them without even blinking. We're like, get rid of that one. Yep, done. This one,
Yeah.
yep, done. It was
Recycle.
it's so easy to just kind of fall into like never seeing that again. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So, but talk about a game where, once again, you choose a character That character has particular abilities. Those abilities can be added or taken away, or new things, happen, or that character can die.
Oh
Um,
man.
but that game is an opportunity to also be a role playing game, which
Yeah,
we did.
we sure did.
And the other thing about this game is that you can have a maximum of 4 players. You really want a fifth player, but it doesn't let you. You don't get a fifth player.
That is so true.
You want one, but oh my God, no way. So you have to make do with 4. You really need 5. They're making you deal with 4.
They did that on purpose. Yeah.
And it is one of those, like, you want a team of players that can gel well, and play and get into kind of a zone of being able to anticipate and work with each other's strategies, and we're all thinking big picture and small picture, and that's the lovely thing about this game, is that you can strategize. You can, before you make your turn, you can plan the fourth person in front of you's turn,
Yeah.
so that you can plan out what could happen. Now, as we know, shit will happen that blows that entire thing up, and you can't do that
tears it
anymore.
apart.
But,
But like that's been a couple of times that we've really like taken the strategy level and put that into the game, where we decided like, okay, we're going to stop playing for 20 minutes to talk about what we're going to do when we play, so that if everything goes to plan, this is going to work out.
yeah,
And then we watch the world fight back,
yeah,
and then like our plans blow up. But that 20
or
minutes
they
never felt
kind of
wasted.
happen,
Right?
It's-
Sometimes it worked out.
and I again, the twists and turns, failing was as rewarding as winning, and the winnings were high. The
Yeah.
failings were a big blow, but what the drama was incredible, and just the experience of play was super high.
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally agree.
I don't know, once again, if that just requires a special group of 4 players that can just do that together really well, or I mean, because the other thing is, if you want to play this, it's really like, I can't imagine playing an entire season of Pandemic Legacy with not the 4 same players every session.
Oh yeah, that sounds impossible.
Or
Because you have to have people
changing
buying
it up,
in.
well, and you have to know what happened
Have to
in
know
the
what
past,
happens and be a
and
part
what
of that. Yeah.
what the strategy was, and how things are evolving. And, like, I mean, you got to think of this as like The Walking Dead, or some sort of like ongoing television show of these characters that are coming together, and dying, or being reintroduced, or changing, or
Oh my God. I couldn't even imagine if the character that I was building died in someone else's hands, if they were playing my game with you.
Oh
Like
my God.
I would have been absolutely devastated. I would have been pissed off about that.
It's the same exact feeling is if you show up to somebody else's role playing game, and you're playing their character because they couldn't make it, and you die.
Yeah.
That's what that would be like. You
Yeah,
get invested in these characters.
You really do. And the game allows for that. And like I said, it's a commitment. I mean, maybe it's not an entire year. Maybe you actually do it all in a couple of months, excuse me. But it's definitely something that you commit to. You really want to see it through to the end.
Yeah.
Or to the next end, right? Like you and I have played Pandemic Legacy 1 and 2. And the first one took us almost a year
Yeah.
to get through. We really did spend time, just because we live so damn far apart.
Yeah.
But we still held on to that and committed to that. And then the second one we did a little bit faster. I will let you know, I was playing Pandemic 1 twice. I was playing season 1 with another group here in Portland while I was also playing it with you back and
Oh,
forth.
crazy.
And they turned into very, very different games.
Oh, I
Just
bet.
like you said, they're significantly different.
Yeah.
But uh, in the same way, like I didn't play that with anybody else other than those other two people, and other than you two. Like we were all committed into that.
Did you find one spoiling the other?
No, I was expecting to. Truly, I really was. But the game was so drastically different because of the decisions that we made. And I would not make decisions based on previous knowledge of the other game.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
sure.
I wouldn't say this happens here, so we're gonna have to do it this way. I would, because that's not fair to anyone else in the experiencing the game. We're all gonna do this to the experience. So I did what made sense for the game. I did what made sense for the character. I played two exceptionally different characters, way different in the roles. And we did what it would make sense to do. And so when the reveals happened, they happened and they were surprising both times because it came up in a completely different way to do it, which was really amazing game design.
So for those of you that haven't done this and are kind of starting to put this together, when you're done with this, can you still play the game? You can still play the basic Pandemic game, but I've got to tell you, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I think I would shelve it, or I would take the game board and frame it, and have everybody sign it, with all the different characters or something. It's a momentous occasion, and then you go out and buy the damn thing again, and play it again with either the same group or somebody else to have a different experience, change things up, and that's kind of the sneaky thing about this, that is so brilliant in the game design, is that it literally makes you buy the game again.
It's a one-time use, basically. Yeah.
It's a one-time use.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with.
Right. And that's the thing. You don't feel bad about that at all.
You get so much gameplay out of it.
So much gameplay. It's such an experience. And I got to be honest, I own like 220 games. I have a lot of games, and I don't like to say that I have not played all of them, but I haven't. I have probably 15 games that are still in shrink. Like they've never been taken off of my shelf at all. I'm really excited I have them. I don't want to get rid of them by any means. But even with the games that I have played, even my favorites that I try to get out to the table so many times, I don't think I've got any other game that I've played 20 times other than Pandemic.
Yeah.
The Pandemic Legacy.
Right.
That's the one I've played so much of. And so, like I said, really being invested in that. And every other game I have, we're hitting a dozen, right? 15 maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
I feel you. So you bring an interesting thing up. You own 230 some games.
Oh, yeah, I do.
You mentioned 15 of those are still in wrappers.
Yes.
Beyond that 15, how many other games that you own have you never played?
Okay, so never played, like over the top terms. I probably still have an additional 5 games I've never played. At least haven't played my copy of them.
Right. We're going to take a break. I need to take care of a barking dog. I'll be right back.
All right.
All right. So Pandemic is great. What you just said about basically a little less than 10% of the games you haven't played.
Yeah.
That's not terrible, Jeremy. That's a pretty great collection that you have. Honestly, like as far as like, you're going to say 230 games plus or whatever, and somebody's going, Jesus Christ,
right?
That is a lot of games. But the fact that you've played, the vast majority of them, it says a lot as you as a game collector.
I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. But to me, like, it doesn't make sense to have a toy stuck in its package or to have a game not waiting to be played. Like that's not what they're designed for. They may have some great artwork, but they're designed to be played.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it just arrived in the mail yesterday. I've got Shovel Knight Dueling Dungeons 3D edition sitting out on my table. It is a full size game box that is about triple thick. It's about 8 inches tall,
Wow.
and I'm so excited. I'm stupid excited to try it because I knew the board game was coming. I bought the video game to play Shovel Knight and get into it, which has been a
Whoa.
hoot, by the way. But I bought the board game first because I was really excited about the idea of having a side scrolling board game.
That is awesome.
It seems hilarious to me. But like it's to that, right? It's
Yeah.
games should be played.
Yeah.
And I really wish I could honor my collection and play all of them more.
Yeah.
But like you said, mid 40s, we don't have time for that anymore. I've got a lot of other damn priorities, like podcasting. That takes up important time. But it does mean that when I do play games, I really cherish that time.
yeah.
I
Well,
really
and like
look
you
forward to
said,
doing it.
I mean, every single game is a particular time commitment, you know. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit different in the way, some people will handle their collections. Game collection is kind of an ordeal. And you
Right?
have
The
to,
shelfies behind us. I would love to say this is actually my shelfie. That's not true.
yeah,
I
same thing
stole
here.
this picture from somebody else.
This is not my collection, but it could be, you know.
Yeah.
I don't have a game cabinet that is this full. I probably own less than 50 games, probably less than 30 games. Because the games that I really love, and I don't really branch out that much. I don't really branch out. There are a few games that I just keep coming back to. The Captain is Dead. You early were talking about a game where, shit happens and aliens are coming and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
The Captain is Dead is one of my favorite games and again, like that's a game where if you don't have the right characters, if you don't have the right team, it's not gonna go well for you.
Arguably, even if you don't have the right players who are in the mood for the game, it's not going to go right for you.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
even the way the player plays the game really makes a difference on that one.
It does.
And it doesn't take a long time commitment, but it does take investment.
It does. It does. So The Captain is Dead is a Star Trek clone type idea. If, Captain Kirk or Jean-Luc Picard before you even start playing is killed immediately, then what
You
happens?
mean like He-Man?
Yeah.
First
just like
episode
He-Man.
dead?
Jesus. Spoilers. Okay. Moving on. Camp Grizzly is a crazy fun horror game that there's a few of them out there, but that one I do kind of like coming back to. It's also one that I find that I still need to be in the right mood to sit down for, but I'm always glad it's there. I don't particularly own it. I don't actually have it. I would love to have it, but I don't
I
have
do.
it. Yeah, which is great. If you have it, I basically have it. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Right. And what a great way to look at it. Because
Yeah.
you basically have it because I have it. Did you give it to me? I think that was a birthday gift from you.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think I have it.
That sounds like a thing I would do.
Mhm.
Yeah. So my jam, my big game, as you know, is Marvel Legendary. And this is a board game because it has a board, but basically that's it. It's mostly a card game. It's a deck building game. So this is a mechanic where you are trying to make the deck of cards that you have better and more powerful so that you can take on the villains and stuff. I probably have close to $1,000, if not more, in this game.
Yeah. Nice.
With all the expansions. I bought these sort of aluminum padded cases, that kind of look like shield, cases that are, you open it up and it's foam and, you have the artifact inside. In fact, I just got stencils. So on the outside of one, so I have two cases. And on the outside of one, I'm going to do the shield logo. And on the other one, I'm going to do Hydra.
Ah, yeah. Love it.
Yeah. So, and that is a game So one of the things that I look for in a particular game, if I'm going to buy a game or invest in a game, is I want the replay value to be through the roof.
Sure.
And that's kind of where I'm at with like movies I would own. Like I want movies that I will watch again and watch again probably a few
Consistently.
times.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and Marvel Legendary is a different goddamn game every single time you play it. And
So
that's
true.
the thing that I love about that game. And it can be as long as you want or as short as you want. It just depends on how you want to build the setup of the game. Now, the setup of the game is like some other games, it's a bit of an investment. There's a time, and you really have to have somebody who is willing to set up the game and then take it down. The setup and takedown is a lot. It's you
Yeah.
know, it's building the decks, it's shuffling, it's then and then when you put them away, you have to resort out the different mini decks to put them back in their right spot.
Sure.
There's a ton. But
And I imagine the more cards you have, the harder it gets because you just have more and more things to build out or put away.
well, not necessarily because you can still only play with the same amount of certain cards. You
Okay.
just have more to keep track of.
Sure.
And to organize them. So, I like I say, I've probably with all the expansions and card sleeves and things like that I've I'm probably at least easily 1,000 into it. You're probably similar with Red Dragon Inn, I
Oh man, I
imagine.
sure am. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about the money that I put in on that. But if you take the card sleeves and the metal coins and just the base games
Oh,
alone,
yeah,
we're looking at $650.
yeah, for
Then you talk
sure.
about the expansions that I buy every time they come out on Kickstarter
Hmm.
and the accessories that come out with those every time they come out on Kickstarter. And it's just I just keep looking at hundreds and hundreds of dollars every time.
But the thing is about that is that it improves the game so much.
It
And
does.
playing that game is so much better every single time we play it. And it is different every single time we play it. And so I love Red Dragon Inn for that. And I love that I don't have to spend a goddamn dime on it because you've got that covered.
The shared collection.
Yes,
What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine too.
that's right. That's right. So, but I will tell you, I was shocked, but not that shocked to find out that it's been a while since I've bought an expansion for Marvel Legendary, and
Yeah,
there are several out that I do not have. I'm excited by that because that means there's more to build, which is
right.
fun. But there is the Shield expansion,
What?
yeah, where they have new Shield officers.
That's what I was hoping you were gonna say.
Oh,
It's not
so
all just Maria Hill.
yeah, so in the game in Marvel Legendary, the Shield officer is the same card. It's just a card that you can buy. It's an option that you can have. It just gives you 2 recruit. That's it. Costs 3 to buy, gives you 2 recruit. And recruit is what you use to buy other cards.
Yeah.
Well, what they did with like not just not henchmen, sidekicks
Hmm.
and bystanders. So bystanders didn't really used to give you anything.
Right. They were just
And
they
then
were just point value.
yeah, and then they started introducing bystanders that actually did something. And they weren't huge, but it was useful.
Yeah.
Same thing with sidekicks. Sidekicks would just give you 2 extra cards, which is awesome in and of itself. And then you have to put the card back. But then they started making variants of that. And like, what else can you do about the same power level of what that does? Now we're going to do shield officers, which no one buys unless they have to.
Unless you have to, right? It's always a throwaway.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. There's one Revelations. I'm trying to cue this up. I don't know what this is. Oh, so Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and War Machine have finally emerged from the shadows, but the Avengers are tested as never before when Dark Revelation force them to question everything they know.
Nice.
Oh,
Dark
so
Revelations expansion. That's rad.
yeah, that's interesting. Um, they have, I know that they have one that's kind of like the Realm of Kings, which is it's the Inhumans.
Okay.
Um, there's Dimensions, which looks like it's kind of a Spider Verse um, cross dimension thing. The New
Sweet.
Mutants. Into the Cosmos is one I'm actually really interested in. You get Adam Warlock and um, what was the other one? Quasar. Adam Warlock and Quasar and other really super epic characters. Um,
Super
Doctor
cool.
Strange and the Shadows of Nightmare.
What? That's if you say Doctor Strange, I am in. That's a
Yeah.
consistent.
Heroes of Asgard. So anyway, there's a ton of expansions. I'm excited that there's more that I don't own and that I will at some point. Um, and yeah,
Gonna need to get
so
a third case.
I think I
Find a
might.
new stencil.
Shit, it's a good thing there are other factions.
Right? For sure. But I think you actually brought up something that I really love to bring up is that because we enjoy playing games together so much, we never have to worry about collecting the same things, getting the same
Mm,
games. I know that the games that I'm really interested in about the ones I'm into that you will definitely try out and play with me are very likely not going to be the ones that you'll be like, I totally need to own this. But
right.
if you do, you will, right?
Hmm.
You'll get the game because you're like, hey, we're going to play this a lot without you,
Yeah.
which are
One
some
deck
great games.
dungeon.
One Deck Dungeon, great example. Like what a fantastic game. That's a quick setup, actual dungeon delve in a very, very small box that you don't have to worry about doing much with, that you can
And
play
super
with
fun,
anybody.
and you can play it with two players, which
Yeah.
is rare. I mean, that's such a wonderful thing. Fires of Eidolon, which is the the golden child. It is my favorite. It's my favorite like surprise game. I don't know what you call it, Easter egg, not Easter egg, but sleeper hit. It's
It's a
for
sleeper
me.
hit for
It's
sure.
first off, you can't get it anywhere. That's the thing that's kind of a bummer
Yeah.
because we're talking about it, but it's not available hardly anywhere.
I mean, good. You
Um,
can look on Board Game Geek. That's about the best bet you'll get is the secondhand. But
yeah,
yeah, it made it through its Kickstarter run, and that was it. That's all
and
they did. That's all
and
they
oh
made.
my god, is it a fun game? It's so the idea is it's kind of a Super Nintendo discovery, almost like a Legend of Zelda dungeon reveal as you
Yeah.
go, and you have to do things, and it's just really really fun.
It's a great mechanic, and you'll probably guess if Don's really excited about the game, it's going to be a cooperative game,
Yeah,
and so this is another one of those that
that's
it's
right.
a cooperative game as a team play, and you can lose pretty significantly, or
Oh
if you
man,
win, it's almost always by the skin of your teeth. It is
yeah,
right to the edge every
yeah.
time, so it's super exciting to play.
And you can feel like you're screwed
Mm.
and then still turn it around.
Yeah,
Um, the other game that was introduced to me at a Gen Con by one of my great game designer friends, Cam Banks, um, he was working with a company that created this, and it's called Lost in Relia. And it's, Cthulian. It's in this little tin with tarot sized cards and this gorgeous artwork.
yeah, it's amazing.
Um, and it's just a real simple, almost like a rummy type. Um, yeah, kind of
Yeah, a
rummy
little bit. Yeah,
ish.
you're collecting sets and building tricks in that
Yeah,
same way,
and stuff.
but the
But
way you play is way different.
it's way different, and all you have to do is read the cards. It tells you exactly
Yeah.
what you need to do. So it's so super simple. And they just give you a little coin that shows you like which direction you're going, because sometimes you'll kind of like, I don't know, phase 10 or Uno, like you can switch the direction. Not phase
Yeah.
10, I don't know what I'm talking about there, but you can switch the direction of play. But but that's a game that I would never have known to pick up. But it's a game I introduce anybody to.
Yeah.
Like I sit down and, basic concept of the game is there will be no winner in this game. No one's going to win.
Nope.
No one will win this game. There will be one loser. And the concept is that you are lost in this Cthulhian madness scape, and you're trying to escape this realm. You're lost in William, and it is fantastic. It's just, and it doesn't take long to play, and it's just really fun.
It's a great one, and I agree with you. Like, and that absolutely scratches my itch too. It's that casual style game. It's that one that's been around that you can get into pretty quickly. Like you said, it takes 5 minutes to learn, and then it takes maybe a half hour to play, even with all 4 players.
Yeah,
it's super fun. It's the right length for that filler game, that intro level, or the warming yourself up for it.
yeah.
You've got one over your shoulder that I absolutely love to play as well. It never gets to my table enough, and it's Terror in Meeple City over your right there. I have the original version of it called Rampage, but it is a great game that has about, I don't know, 300 meeples involved. There's just a bunch of little teeny tiny people that you build in little borders on this city map. So there's this like rubble city. You put the people on the borders, and then you put roofs or floors on top of their heads, and you keep stacking. So you build this 4 or 5 stacked tower of buildings all over the place with these meeples in between. Then you have a giant dragon meeple, your kaiju, that has to rampage through the city and like explode the buildings and eats the meeples.
That's great.
It is super fun and is worth every minute of setup for that game.
Oh wow, that's great. Oh, that's really fun. Okay, well,
crazy ideas, right? Like different mechanics, no strategy on that one at all. That one's more of a an actual like physical play game for that one. That's great.
Yeah, I was just thinking of when you were starting to explain it, I was thinking of Boss Monster.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, but honestly, Boss Monster I thought would be a little bit more like King of Tokyo.
Oh, sure.
But I really like that Boss Monster this is really more of that, again, that 8-bit experience that, back, you are the boss of that level, and you are building out your dungeon.
Building the dungeon that kills the heroes to go through their 8-bit world. Yep, that's it.
Fun. But speaking of Rampage, just King of Tokyo is Rampage, the board game. It's really fun. From the old,
the monkey fighting the King Kong, fighting the lizard guy. Yeah, absolutely. And that one's super fun. Again, it has that weird gameplay value where you have the Yahtzee level dice playing back and forth on the game board, and that very few decisions that can be made by upgrading your powers, or maybe I back out and retreat this time to heal before I try to go in and take all the victory points again.
Yeah. And that's a fun one. That's another one that's got plenty of expansions that keeps the game really interesting.
For sure.
I think the other one that I kind of want to mention before we sort of end this fiasco today is, was it Arkham Horror, I think is what I'm thinking of.
Woo! Talk about a heavy game.
I'm not talking about the board game, though. I'm talking about the card game. So Arkham Horror. Yeah. It is a 2-player game.
Whoa, what?
Yeah. The card game, and it's really, really interesting, and it's just like if you want something for you and your wife to sit down and play and kind of get through, it is really fun, and it's got a lot of expansions and a storyline that carries over into, different seasons. And highly recommend it. Yeah, 1 to 2 players. You can play it solo.
Okay.
but no more than 2 players.
That's
And
really cool. How long does it take then?
um, it can be 1 to 2 hours.
Okay, nice, but not the immense
No,
session
no,
that the normal Arkham Horror board game is.
no. So yeah, so there is the board game version, Arkham Horror, and Arkham Eldritch Horror,
Eldritch Horror, yeah.
which is the massive expansion upon that, which can take 6 to 8 hours.
My first time playing Eldritch Horror was at 10 p.m. at night. And when it
Oh
got to 4
Jesus.
a.m., I was like, I hate this game and I hate you people. Why am I here? I
Yeah,
was so done. I was so tired.
yeah,
That was an experience.
yeah, exactly. So, well, we could talk about this all night, but I mean,
There is one thing I actually do want to bring up because you just mentioned something that I find really fascinating because it's something I'm really getting into right now.
yeah.
Single player games.
Hmm.
So
Good point.
there's an entire set of games now that have originally been developed that have gotten single player, especially in the pandemic world where people have been on lockdown and they can't see other people to play with.
Yeah,
There's
the
been a
actual
whole-
pandemic, not the board game
Not the
pandemic.
board game pandemic. Fun fact though, the board game pandemic gained the most popularity ever during the lockdown of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people played it for that, which I found fascinating. Like I was always like, whoa, that's too soon, but everyone else seemed to be really into it.
Yeah.
But single player games, single player board games, not just for single player rules that are now part of several different games that are out there, but I have a game that I just got in the mail a week ago, yay, called Relics of Rajavahara. And it is designed to be a puzzle game for one player.
Huh.
I can't add other players to this game. I've spent a full $40 on this, but it is a one player game. And it is one of several games that I've started seeing out there where it is a game just designed for single players.
Really?
Whether it be a role playing game for one players or different levels of board games and legacy games, even for one player, that is a growing genre right now that's out
Wow.
there. So you don't even need to have other people to have your game going.
That's incredible.
It's kind of
What
cool.
What is your favorite version of that? Like what game is your favorite one right now of that you own currently?
So I do own Relics, and I'm having a real fun time with that. It's a very tactile style puzzle game. So it's a bunch of boxes and blocks, and your character has to achieve their goal by shifting the blocks around, following the particular rules of the puzzle block. Right? You can push, but you can't pull. You
Got
have
it.
to step one level up, one level down. So it takes a lot of the same kind of gameplay I got from Legend of Zelda and Fire and Ice and a couple of others, and puts it in this board game form, which is great.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
But the one that I played the most before that was actually Tiny Epic Kingdoms, the very first Tiny Epic game that came out. The solar player version of that game is so amazing because of the way the AI works within the game. I roll a die, I randomly roll a die, and a decision is made in the game based on what I rolled. And so the AI character doesn't have to follow a strict set of rules. I've played several games that way where I do this, AI does this. I do this, AI does this. And I've learned how to manipulate that, but it doesn't teach me to play the game very well against other players. This one, I have to strategize differently because that guy could be doing anything randomly of the options that come up. And so that's been a really fun one to play solo player.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I think we're out of time.
Are you kidding me? I could talk about games for 2 more hours.
I know, and I kind of want to, but we have things to do tonight and other whatever.
For sure.
So, real quick, what game are you most excited to acquire that you don't have yet?
That answer was gonna be Shovel Knight for sure, but I got that thing literally like 2 days ago. So I think the next one coming up is Red Dragon Inn 9.
Nice.
That one's going to be on the mail in about 6 months. Red Dragon Inn 9, where you get to go to other inns.
Wow.
You actually leave Red Dragon Inn and you go off on a pub crawl.
Oh,
other ends.
oh my God. Oh, I can't wait for that. That
going to be
is
so
exciting
great.
on so many levels
Yeah.
for me and for you. It's going to be great. Wow. I mean, for me, I'm just excited to get some more legendary expansions.
For sure.
That'll be great. But yeah, that's pretty great. All right, well, this was good. I love talking about things that maybe people will get something out of.
Yeah.
Take it home and go look something up and maybe find something new that you love. I think that's great. I don't know what is going on with the lights in your room, but
apparently we're about to blast off.
Yeah, I think we better let you go before Jeremy explodes. So, all right, well, we'll catch you next week.
Good seeing you, man.
All right, you too.
Play some games.
On it. Thank you for listening to the Early Effect podcast. Subscribe to this podcast so you get every new episode automatically. Please consider joining my Patreon if you are enjoying the show at patreon.com/DonEarly. That's patreon.com/DONEARLY, where you'll get to hear the episodes early and have a say in what we talk about. Damn it! We forgot to talk about time stories. Go check that out. This is my sign-off.